Last night, the boxing world was saddened to find out of the death of George Foreman at 76 years old. George was the oldest heavyweight champion of all time. My next guest is Michael Moore. Michael Moore is an International Boxing Hall of Famer and a former heavyweight champion of the world. Michael is tied to George Foreman and will be forever, as George Foreman became the oldest heavyweight champion with that single right hand. Michael Moore joins us now on There's a Pot of Brand. Michael, I want to know, where did you hear about the passing of George Foreman?
As I was turning in last night to go to bed, I heard I was getting a lot of phone calls and texts. I'm like, my phone doesn't go off like this. And I looked and I saw that people were talking about the death of George. And I was like, wow. And then I got interested in it and I started watching everything and seeing what was happening.
When was the last time you spoke to George?
During the last time I saw George was at the premiere when the movie came, and that's the
Okay.
last time I spoke to him and last time I saw him.
Now, Michael, you're going to be forever linked with Big George in his career, his backside of his career, the second half. What can you tell us about leading up to that fight? What was it like to be around George?
Intimidating in a way. Not that I was afraid of him. It was intimidating because he was just such a large man. He was such an icon in the game of boxing. And I was just, I was pleased to be in the presence of George and to have a fight with him. I go down in history as being a heavyweight champion, but fighting George Foreman and getting in the ring with him, what can you say about that? Only a few select people are able to do that.
Before the fight, when they approached you to fight George, did you know of his previous career, or did you just know him as the second half of his career?
I knew of his second half of his career. I was never a guy that watched boxing back when it was older than I was. I never watched it like that. I always watched it modern, my time and on. That was it.
So let's turn our attention to the fight. The press conference was a little animated with Teddy. Teddy's a good friend of mine, and he did get a little wild. But you were rather reserved for the fight. I have a question for you. When you look back at it now, was it all just fun and games and just pumping up the fans, or was this something that kind of you got to get a mindset to fight someone like George?
Uh, back then it was just a another opponent at the time. Um, then as people talked about it and did things about it, spoke about it and said this and that about it, then it was all, oh, I'm fighting George Foreman,
Mhm.
you know.
So, what in the fight, you seem to be in complete control, complete control. Um, and Teddy was at some point in that fight telling you not to watch out for his right hand because he's still very, very lively, powerful man. What was going through your mind when you were fighting him, and you were absorbing his punches? It wasn't like he was rocking you at that point. What was going through your mind as you fought someone? Was it like, wow, I'm actually beating the legend George Foreman, or was it just a regular opponent?
No, it was at the time, it was just a regular opponent. I, you know, that was my job at the time. So I went to work and
Mhm.
I had to do what I had to do to be successful. And unfortunately, that night I wasn't. It was part of the game.
Was there any animosity between you and George after the fight?
None whatsoever. Not at
Mhm.
all.
Did you
You know
take
how
it
the
as
people know how the boxing game goes. It gets animated, during
Mhm.
certain thing. It was so.
Did you at all after the fight was over? Did you and you walked back to the locker room? Did you know how much history you were going to be?
Not at all. Not at all. It was just that was my job. I had a fight. That was it. You know.
What I mean by that is you're now linked into history with George Foreman. He went on to become an icon, a pop culture icon, but you'll always be linked to him. And is that something that you actually thank George for? Because you now are tied to him forever.
Mm, I think I think we're tied to each other. You
Right.
know, it's unfortunate the passing, but it happens in life. He was great for boxing that I know about. The second part of his career. Um, I'm just grateful and thankful to be around to be a part of it.
And Michael, where do you think George lands on the list of all time greats?
I'm not the type of guy that goes and who's the greatest. My era, the best heavyweight, my era that I remember is Larry Holmes.
Mhm. Well, I'm saying as far as what he's done for the game of boxing, George put boxing back to onto a pedestal with starting with his comeback and culminating with your fight, where he made, I don't know anyone who doesn't have a George Foreman grill. You know what I
Oh
mean? So
yeah, yeah, I
to
got
have
you.
that, he really helped the sport of boxing.
Yeah, yeah, he really did. Yeah, I see where you're coming from now. Yeah, George was very, you know, the type of person he was. He let everybody know what he did, and how he did it. Preaching the word of God, and the grill came out, and everybody wanted to be a part of the grill. And I was included in that as well. Many meals on that grill.
Yeah, it was. Now, finally, in closing, was there anything any story that you can remember where people might not know about with you and George that happened in that lead up to the fight, or even after in the last couple of years that you've spoken with George?
Um, I remember one time at the press conference, I used to always wear the sunglasses, and George said, "Hey, champ, take them glasses off. Let people see them eyes. They want to see your pretty face." And that was it.
He was always the marketer, George. He definitely was the marketer. At the end of the day, George helped both fighters when he promoted fights. He tried to make everybody that was surrounding him to make as much money as they could. Being that he came from where he made money, then he lost it, but he came back on the second hand of his career and really gave everybody flowers. Am I right by saying that?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, George is that type of a man. Absolutely.
And Michael, what are you up to nowadays?
Just hanging. I'm with my one of my best friends, Frankie, right now. We're just hanging out back at home, and we're gonna go watch a basketball game, high school
Are you,
basketball game.
Mike? Are you in Florida?
I live in Florida.
You actually visit my good friend's bagel shop all the time.
Which one?
Goldberg's Bagels.
Oh yeah,
That
oh yeah,
Mark is a friend of mine.
oh yeah. Mark's good dude. Yeah,
Yes, he is. He always calls you champ. He told my one of my friends about it, and I said, if I ever connect with, and I was going to connect with you before the Hall of Fame, I just didn't get a chance to. I didn't
right.
get a chance to congratulate you publicly, Michael. It was an honor to see you up there accepting that award. No one more deserving than you to get
Thank you,
recognized as being one of the best in boxing.
thank you. Appreciate it.
I appreciate your time here on short notice. The untimely passing of George Foreman, you will forever be linked with him in the annals of history in the world of boxing. Michael, it is great to talk to you
Appreciate
finally,
it.
and I will talk to you soon.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks for watching the Zapata Brand podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast and listen where all podcasts are available.